Hi there, how you doing? I haven't been doing so fucking good lately, having a lot of shit storms, problems on the horizon, but I wanted to make a video because I had an idea in my head. Well, I like doing Journey of Wrestling. This is more one of those ideas that I kind of have to talk out because it's something I've thought about. It's one of the biggest botches in wrestling history. Not botches like match-wise wrestling, like storyline-wise, where the payoff was terrible, and that's the higher power storyline, the Ministry of Darkness. And if you're not aware of what that is, I'd say go Google it because I don't really want to explain it because it's kind of complicated. But I'll shortchange it. You know, there's people who make good videos on it, like what it is. But basically, Undertaker had an evil goth faction, a demonic, satanic faction. That was the idea. That was hell bent on making Vince McMahon's life a living hell. At one point, they kidnapped his daughter, Stephanie. This was her first appearance, by the way, Stephanie McMahon. And eventually, the Ministry of Darkness joined with what was Vince's stable, the corporation, to make corporate ministry. And Shane McMahon took over, and it was kind of hinted at, like part of it was that Undertaker wanted Vince McMahon to sign the company over to Taker, and then Shane was probably going to gain the company. So it was kind of hinted at that Undertaker would make references to a higher power or a greater power. He sometimes called it greater power or Howa Power. So he said one time. That might have been JR, I don't know, but it kind of was pretty much, I think, if you watched it week to week, it was kind of obvious it was supposed to be Shane McMahon, because obviously he was the guy in charge of the corporate ministry, but they had to go and do a swerve because everybody knew it was Shane, because it was Russo writing it, but I don't think Russo actually was the one who decided who, at least by his own recollection, he claimed he wanted Christopher Daniels to be the higher power. But Vince McMahon said no because he was too small or something. But basically, it was revealed to be Vince McMahon, which made no sense because Vince was not only fighting the corporate ministry, and not only, they're already trying to ruin his life and make it hell, which apparently was his own doing. It was all supposed to screw with Stone Cold Steve Austin. It was all like, but he was helping Austin during his thing. It's a huge thing. Basically, there's a lot of sources you can look up the whole thing. WrestleCrap has a great article on it, a great induction, because it is a mess. It's convoluted, it's confusing, and it makes zero sense. Like, people talk shit about Lost not making sense. Lost made perfect sense if you actually watch it. This made no sense. There is no thing in this that makes any sense whatsoever of any kind of ending that Vince McMahon would be the higher power. It just doesn't add up. It doesn't. So I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna do it better, and I'm gonna use. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna try to make it realistic. And I've seen Christopher Daniels is the one name a lot of people like, but the thing is, and I'm not hating on Daniels. He's amazing. This was 1999. So Daniels would have been an indie guy. I think he would have been kind of old, like not that old, but I think he was like 25 or something. Like, that's not old, but he wasn't like just a kid starting out. But he was 25. He'd been on the indies a few years. The thing is, I don't think people would know who he is, and it's kind of unbelievable, in my opinion, that Undertaker would be following this unknown wrestler guy. And nothing against him personally, but he's a small guy too. And this was the Attitude Era, especially. This is kind of like the Hulkamania era, like where the small guys kind of didn't really get that much TV time as like mid card roles. Sometimes they did, but it was very rare. So I don't think it would make a lot of sense him being the leader. If somebody wants to do that, I think they could probably do it better than me. And maybe you could. I mean, it would probably make a good journey of wrestling, so you're making him the higher power. But I'm gonna book it like in my way, the way it would go. And also, Jake the Snake Roberts is one name that gets tossed around. But not only is there already a video about that with Adam Blampier made, where Jake Snake is the leader, but I don't think it's very realistic because he was very sick at the time. He had problems with his demons, famously. And well, yeah, you could send him to rehab for months before this, but there's no guarantee that it would work out. So I'm just gonna do it differently. Now, for mine, it's not going to be somebody in WWF. We're going to have to at least take that step. We're going to have to pay for a guy. And I'm sure we could actually buy out his contract because WWF, this is 1999. WWF has more money in that year than they've ever had before. They will get more later, but at this point, this is their most profitable year, I think, ever. If I'm not mistaken, it might have been surpassed, but at this point, it's still their most profitable year. That. So the guy we're going to buy, and I think it makes perfect sense, and I'll explain why, is in the higher power. Big reveal. Well, let's do the reveal. So it's Raw. If this is how the scene went. Raw, Shane and the corporation are in the ring. There's a guy there beside Shane, beside Taker, who's got like a red hood. a red hood thingy covering his face, and he says he wants Vince McMahon to come out and see for himself who the higher power is. And Vince gets on the screen and says, "I'm perfectly fine back here, seeing here how it goes." And of course they reveal, and it's the famous meme, if you've seen it, "It's me, Austin! It's me all along!" Which is funny, but it made zero sense. In this one, he takes off the hood. Same thing happens, and it is Raven. Scott Levy, if you will, if you know him. But Raven, who not only has history in leading cults, but is a very dark, sinister figure. And I believe it makes some sense on Undertaker. He could be working with Undertaker. Now let me explain exactly why this thing's happening. And he would basically cut a promo to kind of start this storyline. Well, I guess it's already started, but the continued storyline. But the one I'm writing, I guess, from this point on. I keep it exactly the same before all the other stuff happens. Even though there's some nonsense in there, but I just keep it, whatever. It ain't a big deal. Raven basically says 4 points. And these 4 points are why he likes Shane, why he's working with Taker, why he doesn't care for Vince, and why he's working with Austin. He starts with Vince. And he basically just says Vince McMahon disrespected him. He didn't care about him when he was in WWF before. If you don't know, he was Johnny Polo, this dorky manager guy and a commentator. He didn't have much of a role before he was Raven. And basically, he would hate him for that, and he would say that Vince never cared about him. He always treated him like a joke, even though he had all the talent in the world, and he could have been a big star years before he was. And then he goes on about Shane, how he got aligned with Shane, is that Shane and him became friends because Shane was the only person who treated him like a human being when he was in the WWF before. And Shane doesn't like Vince. Shane told him stories about how his father didn't care about him either, and how his father made him be a referee and a commentator. He wouldn't let him be in the business except in the most demeaning ways possible, which nothing wrong with those jobs. I'm just saying this is what Raven's saying. And from Shane's point of view, it makes sense. Because he's supposed to be the spoiled rich brat kind of in this storyline. And then Raven would go on and say, Undertaker, basically he would echo a promo Taker made a year earlier that you should watch out the WWE Network because it's amazing anyway. Where Undertaker basically is cutting a shoot-style promo where he says that for years he worked for Vince McMahon. He never left. He stayed loyal. He slayed all the dragons he wanted, or slayed, I think he said monsters, slayed all the monsters he wanted him to, but he never got a shot with the championship, which is pretty accurate. He had 2 runs in the 90s, but it does fit that he didn't have the title all that much, especially considering how long he was there. And then he says, about Austin. In this promo Taker made about Austin, he won the shot. But in this one, Raven will say that Undertaker stayed loyal. He slayed the monsters, and Vince always treated him bad. He never cared about him. He didn't care how broken and beaten his body was, kind of echoing the fact that I think in real life Taker was hurt around some time. And, basically that's why Taker joined with him, and now he's WWF champion, because he was at this time. And then Austin, he basically says he doesn't have a problem necessarily with Stone Cold wrestling-wise. It's just a character. He hates it because it glamorizes alcoholism, because his father was an alcoholic and a miserable son of a bitch, he says. Basically, that's the idea. And this is a story I think that Raven could really make work. Because it fits the Attitude Era, but he could definitely make it where a believable, compelling story. And okay, so furthermore, in this promo, because I've gone long enough, he says he wants to make a match. First, he's making a tag match for him and Taker that night so he can have his debut against the Hardy Boys. He's basically like, bring out these young guys. They're going to get their shot. This is a match just to kind of show off Raven. And he says, now I have a challenge for Vince McMahon later tonight. Myself, Shane, and Undertaker versus him, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and a partner, any partner they can want for the King of the Ring, which is 2 weeks away from this, I believe. And if Austin and Vince's team win, they get the WWF title, because Taker has it. If the Ministry of Darkness wins, they get 100% control of WWF, because Shane has 50% at this point. Or 25, I don't remember. But let's just say for the point of this thing, he has 50. Okay. So then we get later in the show. Well, first, Raven and Taker, they have a pretty average match with Hardy. The Hardys do a few things, but basically they kind of dominate them to kind of put them over. Especially Raven, who gets the win with his DDT to kind of get that over, the Raven effect. Or the even flow. I think it was the even flow. All right, next, we have a brief thing with Vince where he's in his office with a cell phone. It won't look like this is a cell phone, but a cell phone 1999-wise. He answers it, and he goes, "What do you want? You're the last person I want to talk to right now," he says. And he says something like, that is true. That doesn't make sense, but, okay, I might have to think about that. And then, basically later in the night, Stone Cold, at the end of the show, they want their answer, the Ministry. Vince comes out and he's like, as far as I'm concerned, I'm more than ready. I already have the third man. We just need Austin. Austin comes out. I was like, he looks at Vince. He goes, you know what? I shouldn't do an impression of Austin, but anyways, he's like, you know what? I don't trust you, you son of a bitch, and I definitely don't like you. But I should. And he points at a finger at them in the ring. He's like, I sure as hell don't trust these assholes a lot less than I trust you, and we're gonna kick their ass. And then you could have them run in the ring and do some. Maybe Stone Cold does. I mean, traditionally you got to get it in with Stone Cold doing stunners, but this show kind of has to end with some form of Raven looking strong a little bit. So maybe they get in the ring. Stone Cold's done some of the other ministry, the corporate ministry like Midian, like the APA, or Acolytes, whatever. They get out of the ring. Next week there's free matches and pretty much a reveal of who's going to be the third partner. One match is Taker defending his title against X-Pac to basically give us a title match before the King of the Ring. And X-Pac, this is like a short match. X-Pac does some kicks. He does get a little bit on Taker. Taker grabs him one time when he goes for his little jumping kick and he like drops him down like a spine buster. He does. Undertaker runs in the corner to a splash like this, but X-Pac moves. And then he kind of gets kicked by X-Pac with corner kicks, and he's ready for a Bronco Buster. And when he comes, Taker puts his boot up to his face, not to his he doesn't hit him in the dick. He hits him straight in the fucking face, and then he gets up, he chokeslams him 3 times in a row. He keeps poking him up each time the ref's mad. He tombstones him, and he does a little pin. Then after, he says he's going to end the X-Pac's career as the first sacrifice tonight. And he puts a chair on his neck. He's going to stop on it. Out come, the lights go out. Fire comes out. Kane comes out because he's X-Pac's tag partner. Excuse me. And obviously Taker's brother. They have a brief stare down, but they don't do anything. And he leaves Taker. He leaves him for that time. And he says something like, "This ain't over between me and you." And then the Big Show runs in and chokeslams Kane because they're gonna fight at the King of the Ring in tournament. Oh, by the way, The Rock has a feud here with Jeff Jarrett, who's not Intercontinental Champion in the storyline, to kind of make it so he's not the one that's he has a match at the King of the Ring, so he's not the one that can be on the team. So later in the show, Austin's bothering Vince about who's the third person. He says, "I'll tell you later tonight." Maybe Austin makes a jab like, "It better not be that son of a bitch Hulk Hogan," like a little joke about NWO from a few years earlier. And I would have these two share a beer, just like a moment and they drink their beer together to kind of bring them a little close together, even though they don't like each other. And have Vince say something like, Vince McMahon, or no, Austin goes, "Vince, I don't like you very much, but I will say sometimes you're a pretty cool son of a bitch." they put their beers together. This is a cool little moment, like character building. Then later in the show, we have Raven in his first match ever one-on-one against D'Lo Brown. He wins in about 5 minutes. He dominates most of the match. D'Lo gets some stuff in, but this is the big Raven look a little good. Then finally in the main event, we get Stone Cold and Shane, which is made from the previous week. I should have mentioned, sorry. And basically, this match, Stone Cold and Vince come out for the match, and it's just Shane and Taker. And then all of a sudden, Shane's out there, but then Raven and Taker come out and go, and then Shane goes, "You're too stupid if you thought this was going to be a match. We're going to beat you down and injure you before the King of the Ring." And they start about to do that, but then Vince gets some before they get into the ring. Vince gets the mic. They're in the ring, and then Vince gets the mic and goes, "Well, you know what? Guess what? I'm going to reveal our partner tonight. And I only have 2 words for him." And he only has 2 words for you. Sorry, I said that wrong. So this gives people thinking, is it X-Pac? Because Taker beat him up earlier. Is it Road Dogg, who's basically the last DX member left? And the lights go out, because, I like doing that. Why not? And in the ring, it's Triple H with his sledgehammer for the first time. He hits Shane. Raven and Taker get out of the ring, and he's in the ring doing suck it, whatever. There's a reason for this. So Triple H was in corporate ministry, and at the King of the Ring, he tells Vince that he only joined to get a title shot. So he tells him, "You better keep your word. When Austin becomes champ, I get a title shot." So anyway, the King of the Ring, the match is going. They're kind of fighting each other. It's a tornado match, so it's not a tag. So everybody's fighting everybody. Mainly, Vince is fighting Shane, Taker's fighting Triple H, and Raven's fighting Austin. Then near the end, Triple H gets his trusty sledgehammer, and he turns, and he hits Austin. Because this was all a setup. It was a swerve by the corporate ministry. They told Triple H to make the call and tricked him. And so, of course, after this, I think I'm running out of time. I might have to do part 2 of this. But after this, we just revealed that Triple H was working for him, and he's going to get a title shot at on the next Raw or whatever. So he made a deal with Shane, and also it's because he works for corporate ministry. So now Shane gets 100% control of WWF because of the storyline. And that would be the way I would start it. This is the first pay-per-view. I'm trying to think. What would be the next thing? Because Fully Loaded is next. And they did in real life the Stone Cold First Blood with Undertaker. I think that still works. What I would do is have it be where we get free matches. So it would be The Rock still fights Triple H. We get a first blood with Undertaker and Stone Cold, like real life. And Shane and Vince fight. Basically, I guess the twist here would be that Shane thinks he got 100% of the company, but Vince reveals that he doesn't actually have 100%. He only has 25%, so Shane has 50, and Lyndon Steph's will have 50, but they'll put it up on the line of a street fight with him. But no members of corporate ministry can be involved, or they'll be fired, or lawsuits, or whatever. Austin wins his thing, and this is like real life Rock and Triple H. This is a number one contender match. Though, actually it's a triple threat. It's made by Shane. Let's make it that, where Raven gets the win. And Triple H, he gets the title shot on Raw, and Stone Cold fucks it up. You're wondering about that. He comes out, stuns Triple H, and like Taker and him brawl for a little bit. Anyway, so Undertaker wins the first blood. He's champ again. We get Raven and Austin at SummerSlam. This would basically be the end of the ministry, where Austin beats Raven. Well, this time Austin was banged up, so you could actually have Raven win the title. So I guess what you'd have to do is add Triple H, because in real life they added Mankind, Triple H, and Jesse Ventura. If you had to make that thing where Jesse Ventura doesn't want to hold... The story is that he didn't want to hold a heel's arm up. Austin was hurt. I guess you could make a four-way with Mankind. I actually think that would be kind of interesting, because you'd have Mankind and Raven in the same match. Yeah, that could work. You make it, and then Mankind... Well, I'm fantasy booking, so in mine, I actually don't have a problem with adding Mankind and Raven and Triple H. I think that'd be a cool main event. And I would actually have, shockingly, Raven win the title. I think that would be cool. Have him win. Have him his arm raised by Jesse Ventura. I like Jesse Ventura alright, but he doesn't have to be there. WWF didn't need him. They were big enough on their own without him. They were huge. They're gonna get buy rates no matter what. It's a dumb thing that they needed him. And after that, basically, because Austin would be kind of gone, I would make a feud between Raven and Mankind, which would mostly be hardcore based, but it would have. But of course, Mankind at this point was kind of nearing the end of his career. Jeez. So maybe also Rock is involved at some point. I mean, you can still do the six-pack challenge they did. I don't know where I go from there, but basically that's how I would book the storyline. So in the end, Raven would still get kind of a last laugh on Austin. Vince would basically disappear after he beats Shane, which is that's kind of a hole in my story, but I don't think he needs to be there as much, because the storyline with him, he'd been there for like 2 years doing stuff, so he kind of was being used up as a character. Taker basically gets the time off after, well, just like real life is after SummerSlam, he takes some time off, comes back American Badass. And other than that, I don't really know where I would go beyond that, except that Raven would win the title at SummerSlam. Basically, the story would kind of end there, and he would probably feud with Mankind. Possibly, if he wasn't injured, and he was healthy enough, when the Undertaker returns to American Badass, you could have those two have a feud. Basically, where maybe Undertaker's mad at because he feels like Raven manipulated him or tricked him. But anyway, that's the way I would do it. And I don't know, tell me some thoughts on what you think. How do you think? Do you think Raven would be a good fit for being the higher power? Does he make sense? Or who would you like to see as a higher power? Because to me, I feel like Raven, Jake the Snake, and Christopher Daniels would be the best options, but Daniels doesn't make sense because people don't know him. Jake, I don't think is in a condition, so Raven would be the best option in my opinion. But is there people that I haven't said that you think of? And besides Shane and Vince, because I think that Vince is the real one and Shane was the most obvious. Like, is there other ones you could think of maybe? Like, I think Shawn Michaels would be a great one if he could wrestle, but at this point he couldn't really wrestle. So, not him, because he would have won revenge, but I don't know why Taker would be following him. But anyway, long sign off. Anyway, thanks for watching, and have a great fucking day. Peace.